Captain Tom Reed stared at the message on the screen, his face hard as stone. The words glowed with an ugly blue light in the dimly lit command center of Moon Base Alpha. Join us or be destroyed. Simple. Direct. Final. The message from the Stellar Empire had arrived 6 hours ago. Since then, Earth's Orbital Defense Command had been in constant emergency meetings. Captain Reed had not slept. "They've given us 3 months," said Admiral Blake, the gray-haired leader of Earth's defense forces. He looked older than his 60 years today. 3 months to surrender or face total destruction. Captain Reed nodded. And the Galactic Alliance? "They won't help," Admiral Blake said with a bitter laugh. "We're too new, too unimportant. The ambassador made it very clear, Earth is expendable." The room fell silent. Humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance only 15 years ago, discovering they were merely infants in a universe of ancient civilizations. Some alien races had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. "Show me our defenses again," Reed said finally. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, Earth's defensive fleet. 40 ships, their best technology. Against the Stellar Empire's thousands. "It's not enough," Reed said quietly. "Not nearly enough." The door to the command center slid open. A woman with short black hair and intense eyes walked in, carrying a tablet computer. Dr. Lisa Jones, Earth's leading physicist and the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Prize. "Captain Reed, Admiral Blake," she said with a nod. "I hear we have a problem." "That's putting it mildly, Doctor," Admiral Blake said. "Unless you've figured out how to turn our ships invisible, we're looking at the end of human civilization." Dr. Jones smiled slightly. "Not invisible. Something better." She tapped her tablet, and a new hologram appeared, the strangest ship design Reed had ever seen. It looked wrong somehow, as if parts of it existed in different places at the same time. "What am I looking at?" Reed asked. "A warship," Dr. Jones said. "One that breaks the rules." "What rules?" "Physics, mostly." Admiral Blake frowned. "Explain." Dr. Jones moved her hands through the hologram, expanding certain sections. 3 months ago, my team discovered something unusual about quantum fields. We found a way to fold spacetime that contradicts conventional theory. This ship design would use that principle to exist partially outside normal space. "Meaning?" Captain Reed asked. "Meaning it could move instantly between locations. Conventional weapons would pass right through it. And its own weapons would strike from impossible angles." The door opened again. An alien figure entered, tall, with blue-gray skin and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. "Rokal, the ambassador from the Stellar Empire to the Galactic Alliance." "I apologize for the intrusion," Rokal said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "I came to see if humans were preparing their surrender documents." Admiral Blake stepped forward. "We're exploring our options, Ambassador." Rokal's eyes fell on the hologram. He stared for a moment, then made a strange sound, a laugh, though it sounded more like glass breaking. "Is that a ship design?" he asked incredulously. Dr. Jones lifted her chin. "It is." Rokal circled the hologram, his laughter growing. "This is impossible. Completely impossible. The quantum fold you're attempting would collapse immediately. The power requirements alone would." He stopped, looking at their faces. "You're serious? You actually believe this could work?" "We've run the simulations," Dr. Jones said firmly. "Your simulations are wrong," Rokal said. "This breaks at least 6 fundamental laws of physics as understood by every advanced race in the galaxy." "Maybe that's the problem," Captain Reed said slowly. "Every advanced race thinks the same way. But we don't." Rokal's expression shifted to something like pity. Captain, the laws of physics aren't cultural opinions. They're universal constants. This ship would never function. It cannot be built. After the ambassador left, silence filled the command center. Is he right? Admiral Blake asked finally. Dr. Jones looked thoughtful. Maybe. But I don't think so. Our understanding of quantum mechanics has always been different from the standard galactic model. What if we're not wrong, just different? Captain Reed studied the strange ship design. How quickly could we build it? With unlimited resources? 2 months, maybe. Admiral Blake shook his head. The risk is enormous. If it doesn't work, we've wasted our only chance to prepare conventional defenses. And if it does work? Reed asked. Then we change everything, Dr. Jones said simply. Admiral Blake looked between them, then at Earth glowing blue and green in the main view screen. Home. Everything they had ever known. Code name it Project Icarus, he said finally. Keep it completely secret. Dr. Jones, you have whatever resources you need. As they left the command center, Captain Reed paused. Icarus flew too close to the sun and fell, Admiral. Admiral Blake smiled grimly. Yes, but first, he flew. The clock was ticking. 3 months to build the impossible. 6 weeks later, deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Tom Reed floated through the makeshift shipyard. Around him, construction drones zipped back and forth, carrying materials to the growing skeleton of the impossible ship. We're behind schedule, engineer Mike Green said, not looking up from his tablet. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and a permanent oil stain on his left cheek. The quantum stabilizers keep failing. Can we fix them? Reed asked. Mike snorted. Fix them? We can't even build them properly. The materials don't exist. Dr. Lisa Jones joined them, pushing off a wall to float gracefully beside the half-built ship. Then we make do with what we have. Make do? Mike looked at her incredulously. This isn't patching a leaky pipe, Doctor. You're asking materials to behave in ways they physically can't. Can't they? Dr. Jones challenged. Or have we just never asked them to before? Captain Reed studied the strange framework. Even unfinished, the ship looked wrong somehow. Sections seemed to blur at the edges, as if they weren't entirely solid. What if we used the wrong materials on purpose? Mike said suddenly. What do you mean? Reed asked. The quantum theory says certain materials should never work for this purpose, right? But our human understanding is different. So what if we try materials that should fail, according to alien science? Dr. Jones smiled slowly. Backwards thinking. I like it. A warning alarm blared. The three of them turned to see sparks erupting from the central core of the ship. Workers scattered as a small explosion rocked the structure. Third failure this week, Mike muttered. At this rate, we'll never finish in time. Reed's communicator beeped. Admiral Blake's face appeared on the small screen. Captain, we have a situation. A Stellar Empire scout ship was detected near Mars. They may have found your location. Reed felt his stomach tighten. Understood. We'll increase security. As he ended the call, a new figure approached, not human. The alien was tall and thin with pale green skin that seemed to shimmer in the harsh lights of the shipyard. Zarn, a scientist from a small world in the Galactic Alliance. More problems? Zarn asked, his translator making his voice sound metallic. Nothing we can't handle, Reed said cautiously. Though Zarn had been assigned as an observer by the Alliance, Reed still didn't fully trust him. I have been studying your designs, Zarn said. They are interesting. Interesting enough to work? Dr. Jones asked. Zarn tilted his head. Perhaps. You realize I risk exile just by helping you? My people believe this technology violates natural law. Then why help us? Reed asked. Because natural laws should be questioned, Zarn replied. Look here. He projected a diagram into the air between them. Your quantum core is unstable because you're trying to process the field fluctuations with mechanical systems. We have to, Mike said. Nothing else can handle the load. Nothing mechanical, Zarn agreed. But what about biological? Dr. Jones frowned. Biological? You mean, a living system? Your human brains already process quantum information differently than any species I've encountered, Zarn explained. It's why you can even conceive of this ship. What if the ship's core was linked directly to a human mind? Silence fell as they considered the implications. You're talking about a neural interface, Dr. Jones said slowly. Connecting a human directly to the quantum fields. Has it been done before? Reed asked. No, Zarn said. Which is why your enemies believe this ship is impossible. No known species can survive direct quantum connectivity. Except, perhaps, humans. 2 days later, a sleek ship docked at the hidden base. A woman with short blonde hair and a confident stride stepped out. Kelly West, reporting for duty, she said, saluting Captain Reed. I hear you need a test pilot for something unusual. That's putting it mildly, Reed replied. Have you been briefed? Kelly smiled. They said you're building a ship that breaks the laws of physics and might melt my brain if I try to fly it. Sounds fun. As they walked toward the construction bay, a small explosion rocked the station. Happens all the time, Reed assured her. We're still working out the bugs. Kelly whistled when she saw the ship. It was taking shape now, a darkly gleaming hull with sections that seemed to fade in and out of visibility. What do you call her? Kelly asked. We haven't named her yet, Reed admitted. Every ship needs a name, Kelly said. Even impossible ones. As they watched, another section of the hull shimmered into place. The quantum fields briefly stabilized, and for a moment, the entire ship seemed to exist in perfect clarity. Defiance, Captain Reed said suddenly. Her name is Defiance. With 6 weeks left before the Stellar Empire's deadline, the impossible warship was taking shape. But time was running out, and the hardest challenges still lay ahead. It failed again, Dr. Lisa Jones said, rubbing her tired eyes. She stood in the research lab connected to the shipyard, surrounded by holographic equations that glowed blue in the dim light. The power system simply won't stabilize. Captain Tom Reed leaned against the wall, his face showing the strain of too many sleepless nights. We have 4 weeks left, Doctor. The Stellar Empire won't extend their deadline. The door to the lab slid open. An elderly man with wild white hair and thick glasses shuffled in, leaning on a cane. Professor Ray White, once Earth's most celebrated theoretical physicist, now brought out of retirement for one final impossible task. You're trying too hard to please the aliens, Professor White said without preamble. Dr. Jones frowned. What do you mean? You're still thinking in their framework, Professor White said, tapping a gnarled finger against one of the holographic equations. Look here, you're using their mathematical model as your starting point. But their model is based on their perception, not ours. Mike Green joined them, wiping grease from his hands. You're saying aliens see physics differently than we do? Physics is physics. Is it? Professor White challenged. Quantum mechanics has always been about observation. The observer affects the observed. What if different species observe differently? What if the human brain processes quantum information in a fundamentally different way? The room fell silent as they considered the implications. The professor continued, for 1,000 years, advanced species have been building starships based on their understanding of physics. But what if that understanding is incomplete because of the limitations of their perceptual systems? Dr. Jones's eyes widened. That would explain why they think our ship is impossible. They literally cannot perceive the solution we're seeing. Exactly, Professor White said with a triumphant smile. We need to stop trying to make our ship work according to their rules and start embracing our uniquely human perspective. A new voice joined the conversation. An interesting theory. They turned to see Drow, a high-ranking official from the Stellar Empire, standing in the doorway with 2 guards. His silver-scaled skin gleamed under the laboratory lights. Ambassador Drow, Captain Reed said stiffly. This is an unauthorized visit to a restricted area. Drow smiled, showing pointed teeth. My government sent me to observe your progress. We're curious about how humans spend their final weeks of freedom. He walked around the laboratory, examining the equipment with obvious amusement. All this effort for nothing. Even if you complete your ship, it will never function. The laws of physics are not suggestions, Captain. Professor White chuckled softly. That's where you're wrong, Ambassador. Physics isn't what you think it is. Drow's smile faded. Explain. I'd rather demonstrate, Professor White said. He nodded to Dr. Jones, who activated a small device on the lab table. A miniature version of the quantum core, the heart of the Defiance, hummed to life. The air around it seemed to shimmer and bend. Impossible, Drow whispered, his confidence visibly shaken. For you, perhaps, Professor White said. But not for us. After Drow left, obviously disturbed by what he'd seen, a new face joined the team. Engineer Anna Lee, a specialist in human-computer interfaces, arrived with crates of equipment. I heard you need a way to connect human brains to quantum fields, she said, unpacking her gear. I've been working on neural interfaces for years. Never thought I'd be using them to save the world, though. Over the next week, the team worked feverishly to implement their new understanding. Professor White and Dr. Jones developed a unified theory that explained why the ship could work with human operators. Engineer Lee created an interface that would allow human neural patterns to directly influence quantum fields. It's ready for testing, Anna announced finally. But I should warn you, the neural load will be intense. The first person to connect to this system will be risking their mind. Captain Reed straightened his shoulders. I'll do it. Tom, no, Dr. Jones protested. We need you to command the ship, not be part of its systems. Someone has to go first, Reed said firmly. And I won't ask my crew to take risks I'm not willing to take myself. The following day, Captain Reed sat in a chair surrounded by equipment. Electrodes were attached to his temples, and a complex headset covered most of his face. The interface will scan your neural patterns, Anna explained. Then attempt to establish a two-way connection with the quantum core. If it works, you should be able to influence the field with your thoughts. And if it doesn't work? Reed asked. Anna hesitated. Best case? Nothing happens. Worst case? Brain damage. Reed nodded. Proceed. Dr. Jones gave the command. Activate the interface. The lights dimmed as power flowed into the system. Reed's body went rigid, his hands gripping the armrests of the chair. A scream tore from his throat. Then, amazingly, the quantum core stabilized. For the first time, the readings showed a perfect, sustained field. Reed opened his eyes, which now seemed to contain galaxies. I can see it, he whispered. I can see how it all fits together. With 3 weeks remaining, they had their breakthrough. The impossible ship now had a theoretical foundation, but theory and practice remained worlds apart. The Defiance floated silently against the blackness of space, just beyond Neptune's orbit. From the outside, the ship looked almost conventional, a dark, sleek hull with unusual angles. But those who knew what to look for could see the strange shimmer around its edges, the way certain sections seemed to fade in and out of reality. Captain Tom Reed stood on the bridge, his face pale but determined. After his experience with the neural interface, he had spent 3 days recovering, plagued by strange dreams where he existed in multiple places simultaneously. All systems ready for quantum drive activation, Kelly West reported from the pilot station. Well, as ready as experimental, impossible systems can be. Commander Bill Stone, the newly assigned second-in-command, frowned at her casual tone. This isn't a joke, Lieutenant. If this fails, Earth has no backup plan. If we fail, a sense of humor won't matter anyway, Kelly replied with a shrug. Reed touched the neural interface band wrapped around his forehead. It was lighter than the prototype, elegant even, thanks to Anna Lee's refinements. 5 other crew members wore similar devices, creating a network that would distribute the neural load. Status report, Reed ordered. Conventional engines functional, Mike Green reported from engineering. Quantum core at 70% stability and holding. Medical monitoring active for all neural interface users, said Dr. Sam Nash, the medical officer. Vital signs elevated but within acceptable parameters. Reed nodded. Begin test sequence. A small ship approached the Defiance, a Galactic Alliance vessel carrying observers. Among them was Kelver, a high-ranking official sent to witness this test, and, Reed suspected, to confirm Earth's failure. The Alliance observers have taken position at the designated safe distance, Commander Stone reported. They're requesting communication. Put them through, Reed ordered. Kelver's face appeared on the main screen. The alien had pale blue skin and large, compound eyes that reflected the light like a kaleidoscope. Captain Reed, Kelver said formally. The Galactic Alliance wishes to observe your test. While we cannot intervene in your conflict with the Stellar Empire, we are curious about your claims. Understood, Reed replied. We're beginning now. The communication ended, and Reed turned to his crew. This is it. Everything we've worked for. No matter what happens today, I want you all to know that you've already accomplished the impossible by building this ship. He sat in the captain's chair, adjusting the neural interface. Activate quantum drive. 10% power. The bridge lights dimmed as power flowed to the core. Reed felt the familiar pressure in his mind as the interface activated, connecting his consciousness to the ship's systems. Around him, the other interface users gasped or groaned as their minds joined his. Neural network stable, Dr. Nash reported, his voice strained. Brain activity spiking but holding pattern. Core stability at 90%, Mike announced. That's better than any simulation. Reed closed his eyes, feeling the ship as if it were an extension of his body. He could sense the quantum fields surrounding them, could see, not with his eyes, but with some new sense, the fabric of spacetime itself. Increase to 20%, he ordered. The pressure in his mind grew, and with it, a strange sensation of being stretched thin. On the view screen, the stars began to distort. 30%. The ship shuddered. Reality seemed to bend around them. Something's happening. Kelly shouted. The ship is. Her words cut off as the Defiance partially phased out of normal space. For a moment, Reed experienced pure chaos, his consciousness existing in multiple realities simultaneously. He saw Earth from 1,000 angles at once, witnessed the birth and death of stars, felt the cold silence between galaxies. Then, with a jolt that knocked everyone off their feet, the ship reappeared in normal space. Status report. Reed demanded, fighting through the disorientation. We've moved, Kelly said in disbelief, checking her instruments. We're 200,000 kilometers from our starting position. The jump took less than a second. It worked, Mike whispered. It actually worked. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Security breach in Engineering Section 3, a voice announced over the comm system. Reed staggered to his feet. Commander Stone, take the bridge. Dr. Nash, with me. They raced through the corridors to find Drow, the Stellar Empire observer, attempting to download data from an engineering terminal. 2 unconscious human guards lay nearby. Looking for our secrets, Ambassador? Reed asked coldly. Drow turned, his expression a mixture of fear and awe. How did you do it? This technology shouldn't be possible. And yet, here we are, Reed replied. Before Reed could apprehend him, Drow activated some kind of personal teleporter and vanished in a flash of light. He'll tell his people, Dr. Nash said. Good, Reed replied. Let them know what they're facing. When they returned to the bridge, the comm system was buzzing with messages. The Galactic Alliance observers were demanding explanations. Earth Command wanted immediate reports. Captain, Kelly called out. You need to see this. On the screen, Kelver's face showed an emotion Reed had never seen on an Alliance member before, shock. Captain Reed, Kelver said slowly. The Alliance request an immediate consultation. This technology changes everything. As the adrenaline of success flowed through him, Reed suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. The neural interface flashed warnings. His vision blurred, doubled, then fractured into 1,000 pieces. The last thing he heard before consciousness slipped away was Dr. Nash shouting for emergency medical transport. The impossible had been achieved. But at what cost? He's been like this for 6 days, Dr. Sam Nash said, standing beside Captain Reed's motionless body in the medical bay of Earth Orbital Command. Brain activity is off the charts, but he shows no signs of consciousness. Admiral Blake stared at the man who had become Earth's greatest hope. Reed was attached to various machines, his vital signs stable but his mind seemingly gone. And we have 7 days left before the Stellar Empire's deadline, Blake said grimly. Lieutenant Emma Hall stood nearby, her posture stiff with tension. As Reed's second-in-command on the Defiance, she had been thrust into a position of command she never wanted. The ship needs him, Emma said quietly. The neural interface was calibrated specifically to his brainwave patterns. Without him, the ship is just an expensive piece of metal, Blake finished. I know. Dr. Ryan Park, Earth's leading neural specialist, entered the room, carrying several holographic brain scans. I have something interesting to show you, he said without preamble. Look at these patterns. He projected the scans into the air. This is Captain Reed's brain activity. And this. He pulled up another scan. This is the quantum core of the Defiance, currently in orbit. The 2 patterns pulsed in perfect synchronization. What are we looking at, Doctor? Blake asked. I believe Captain Reed's consciousness is still partially connected to the ship, Dr. Park explained. When the neural interface overloaded, instead of breaking the connection, it deepened it somehow. Are you saying his mind is inside the ship? Emma asked incredulously. Not exactly, but not entirely metaphorical either, Dr. Park said. I think his consciousness exists in both places simultaneously, a quantum state of mind, if you will. A proximity alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Admiral Blake activated the communication panel. Report. Sir, a tense voice responded, long-range sensors have detected a fleet of ships entering the solar system. Configuration matches Stellar Empire vessels. A lot of them. Blake's face hardened. They're early. How many? 50 capital ships, sir. With support vessels, over 200 total. The room fell silent. Earth's conventional fleet consisted of just 40 ships, most of them smaller than the Empire's support vessels. Time to arrival? Blake asked. At current speed, they'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 18 hours. Blake turned to Emma. Lieutenant Hall, you're now acting captain of the Defiance. Prepare the ship for battle. Emma's eyes widened. Sir, without Captain Reed. We have no choice, Blake interrupted. The Defiance is the only chance we have. An hour later, Emma stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the crew before her. They were the best Earth had to offer, but fear showed clearly on their faces. I know you were expecting Captain Reed, she said. So was I. But we still have a job to do. She touched the neural interface on her forehead, a modified version that Dr. Park had adapted for her brain patterns. It wouldn't provide the same connection that Reed had achieved, but it might be enough. Engineering, status report, she ordered. Mike Green's voice came through the comm, quantum core stable at 60%. It's the best we can do without Reed's neural pattern. Emma nodded. It will have to be enough. On the main view screen, the Stellar Empire fleet appeared as tiny points of light, growing steadily larger as they approached Earth. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Park made a startling discovery. When he connected Reed's neural monitors to a communication terminal linked to the Defiance, the captain's brain patterns changed dramatically. Admiral Blake, Park called excitedly. I think Captain Reed is trying to communicate through the ship's systems. On the bridge of the Defiance, the lights suddenly flickered. The ship's computer terminal near Emma activated on its own, text scrolling across the screen. I am here. Emma stared in disbelief. Captain Reed? More text appeared. Ship is extension of self. Neural network integrated. I can see them coming. Is this really happening? Commander Stone asked, his usual skepticism shaken. Emma touched the neural interface, focusing her thoughts. Captain, we need you. Can you help us control the ship? The response came immediately. Yes. Connect all neural interfaces. Distribute load across crew. I will guide. As the Stellar Empire fleet approached, Grand Admiral Vorex stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything in Earth's arsenal. Visual confirmation of Earth defenses, his tactical officer reported. They've positioned their conventional fleet in defensive formation. One unknown vessel detected. Sir, it appears to be the experimental ship our intelligence reported. Vorex laughed. The impossible ship? Excellent. We'll destroy it first as a demonstration. On Earth, Admiral Blake received a priority communication from the Galactic Alliance. Kelver's face appeared on the screen. Admiral, Kelver said, his voice urgent. The Alliance Council has convened an emergency session regarding your quantum technology. We are sending observers to witness this confrontation. To witness our destruction? Blake asked bitterly. To witness possibilities, Kelver replied cryptically. What you've created may change everything we thought we knew about reality. As Emma prepared the Defiance for battle, she felt a strange presence in her mind, not invasive, but supportive. Through the neural network, she sensed the other crew members feeling it too. Captain Reed's consciousness, distributed throughout the ship's systems, was bringing them together in ways no conventional command structure could achieve. The Defiance moved to intercept the Stellar Empire fleet, its quantum core humming with power. Earth's final stand had begun. The Stellar Empire fleet hung in Earth orbit like a swarm of metallic predators, their weapons systems charging. Earth's conventional defenses, 40 ships in tight formation, looked small and fragile in comparison. All ships reporting ready, Grand Admiral, the tactical officer informed Vorex. The humans have not responded to our final surrender demand. Vorex smiled, revealing sharp teeth. Begin the attack sequence. Target their orbital defense platforms first. On the bridge of the Defiance, Acting Captain Emma Hall felt sweat beading on her forehead beneath the neural interface. The crew sat at their stations, each wearing identical devices, all connected to the quantum core, and through it, to Captain Reed's consciousness. "The enemy fleet is powering weapons," Commander Stone reported. "Our conventional forces are moving to intercept, but they're outnumbered 5-1. Emma closed her eyes, focusing on the neural link. Instead of speaking aloud, she directed her thoughts into the network. "Captain Reed, we're ready. What's the plan?" The response came not as words but as pure understanding, flowing through the neural link to every crew member simultaneously. They saw exactly what Reed intended, and it was unlike any battle strategy they had ever considered. "That's impossible," Mike Green whispered from engineering. "Even with the quantum drive, we can't." "We can," came Reed's thought. "Trust me." As the first Stellar Empire ships fired on Earth's defenses, the Defiance began to move. Instead of conventional propulsion, the quantum drive activated, causing the ship to partially phase out of normal spacetime. On the flagship of the Stellar Empire, alarms blared. "Grand Admiral. The experimental human ship, it's doing something strange. Our sensors can't lock onto it properly." Vorex leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "It appears to be flickering, sir. As if it's not fully present in normal space." Vorex frowned. "Target it immediately." Full weapons barrage. Dozens of energy beams lanced toward the Defiance, but the impossible happened, they passed right through it, as if striking a ghost. Inside the neural network, the crew of the Defiance experienced reality differently. Through Reed's consciousness, they could perceive quantum possibilities, seeing paths through spacetime that no conventional navigator could detect. The Defiance flickered into solidity directly beside one of the Empire's largest warships. Before the enemy could react, the human vessel fired its conventional weapons at point-blank range, targeting critical systems that Reed somehow knew were vulnerable. The Empire warship erupted in flames, listing heavily to one side. "Impossible!" Vorex shouted, watching the display. "How did they?" "Sir, they're gone again. Sensors can't locate them." The Defiance reappeared inside the formation of another group of Empire ships. This time, it didn't fire weapons, it simply pulsed its quantum drive, creating a ripple effect that disrupted the enemy vessel's power systems, leaving them drifting helplessly. Throughout the battlefield, the single human ship appeared and disappeared, always striking where least expected, phasing through solid matter as if it were mist, attacking in ways that defied conventional physics. Admiral Blake watched from Earth Command, his expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. "They're actually winning," he whispered. Kelver, the Galactic Alliance representative, stood beside him. "This changes everything," the alien said quietly. "Your species has unlocked something we thought impossible for thousands of years." On the Defiance, the neural strain was beginning to show. Blood trickled from Emma's nose as the ship made another quantum jump. "We can't maintain this much longer," Dr. Nash warned. "The human brain isn't meant to process reality this way. The neural interfaces are overheating." One more attack, Reed's thoughts came through, weaker now but still determined. The Defiance reappeared directly in front of Vorex's flagship. "Fire everything," the Grand Admiral screamed, panic evident in his voice for the first time. But before his crew could respond, the Defiance's quantum field expanded, encompassing the enemy vessel. For a moment, both ships existed in a state between realities. Through the neural network, Emma transmitted Reed's message directly into the Empire ship's communication systems, bypassing all security. "This is Captain Tom Reed of Earth. Your fleet is defeated. Withdraw now, or we will demonstrate what this ship can really do." The quantum field pulsed once, causing the flagship's secondary systems to fail instantly, a demonstration of power that couldn't be ignored. For several tense moments, there was silence. Then, Vorex's voice came through, strained with suppressed rage. You have not seen the last of the Stellar Empire, humans. But, we will withdraw. For now. Across the battlefield, the remaining Empire ships began to retreat, gathering their damaged vessels as they departed. On Earth Command, cheers erupted. Admiral Blake slumped into his chair, relief washing over his features. In the medical bay, Captain Reed's physical body suddenly gasped, his eyes flying open as his consciousness fully returned. On the Defiance, the neural interfaces shut down as the strain became too much. Emma slumped in the captain's chair, exhausted but triumphant. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Days later, as Earth celebrated its miraculous victory, the Galactic Alliance called an emergency session. The technology that humans had created was revolutionary, changing fundamental understanding of quantum physics throughout the galaxy. Captain Reed, finally recovered and reunited with his crew, stood before the Alliance Council. The Defiance was just the beginning, he told them. Humanity is ready to share what we've learned, to work together with all species to explore these new possibilities. And throughout the galaxy, a new saying began to spread among the stars. If you want to do the impossible, ask a human.